people ask us all the time, what's the secret sauce? So there is no secret sauce. It's just the relationship.
Yeah.
It's just having those relationships.
Welcome to Season 7 of Bridge the Gap, a podcast dedicated to informing, educating, and influencing the future of housing and services for seniors. Powered by sponsors AccuShield, Align, Nick Map Vision, ProCare HR, Sage, Hamilton Captel, ServiceMaster, The Bridge Group Construction, and Solinity, and produced by Solinity Marketing.
Welcome to Bridge the Gap Podcast, the senior living podcast with Josh and Lucas. Some great recordings here in Atlanta, Hotlanta, Georgia, on a great August afternoon. We're here at a conference where there's a lot of great conversations going on, and we've got a good friend and industry veteran on the show, Chris Sides. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We last night had a mastermind dinner. I selfishly enjoyed picking your brain over a variety of different topics. And the first topic is the most important topic that I want to start out with is about your barbecue program.
It gets a lot of attention. So it started back in 2008. We were very new operators at that point in time, and we were in the Knoxville market. And that, if you remember the collapse of 2008, there's a lot of manufacturing in Knoxville. And we were there in the Loudon area, so Malibu boats and places like this. And we had people that were pulling their families out of the communities and taking them home to live because they needed their Social Security check to survive. So being in the South, we used to always say we can fix anything with an antibiotic and a casserole. So you go back to the old potluck dinners, and we would cook barbecue, provide the meat. Families would bring in, side dishes and everything else, and that's how it all started. And so all those potluck dinners turned into recipes, turned into 2 cookbooks. First printing we did many, many years ago was 5,000. We gave them away. We didn't even sell them. We used them for a marketing event. We've since done 2 more printings for a total of 10,000. We have a few left. But here again, every time we get a new community, we take cookbooks, and we, it's kind of a grassroots internal. It's got a lot of legs, a lot more than we are. But at the end of the day, we're not caterers. We're here to, and we have to remind people sometimes we're not caterers. So, but it just is one of those things that was born out of necessity and has just moved forward.
And so you take this show on the road, though. Let's take it a little further. This is not just we do this at our company Christmas party.
No. So we developed another phase of that. It was called Fast Friday Barbecue. And here again, this started because we had a location. It was actually a Dominion location that was off the beaten path. And it was like, well, how do we get people to this location? And those were the days before Waze and some of these GPS apps. And so we created a box. It's called a dock in the box. We had a pound of barbecue, a couple of side dishes, some various other things. And we would just sell it, for $5 a box. But the idea was they had to drive to the community, drive under the portico, get that, so they knew where the community was. And we would just sponsor a local, like a Boys and Girls Club, something local to that. Being a good neighbor, here again, that got legs, and that took itself. And we raised, I guess it was back in maybe 2017 or 18, about $30,000 for local charities. We did everything from childhood cancer to Boys and Girls Clubs, Meals on Wheels. We did a lot of Meals on Wheels. And then through COVID, during COVID, we would go to different locations and do it for first responders. It makes zero money. It's just a give back. Sure. So we used it there. But typically, we still do the Fast Fridays, but we do it at new locations. We can only do about 4 or 5 a year because it takes a whole week, and it's just a lot of work. But they always pay. They always pay dividends, and people always remember.
I know it wasn't your intention, but also brilliant marketing. And that's been a cool thing. And last night, obviously, me and Lucas are thinking, well, the next mastermind, we've got to have the barbecue doctor there to do some barbecue instead of paying for catering services, even though you're not a caterer. That would be super cool.
Just got to find the right place.
That's right.
This actually has a point to the conversation because it brings us back to a really core issue in senior care that you elaborated on last night in our dinner, which is what are the basics? What are our older adults inside the community? What do they need most? There's so many things that they need. And yes, technology, a beautiful building, activities, all of these things. But there's a couple of the basics that if you can't get right, you're going to miss the boat. Elaborate.
I think your question last night is, if we come back in a year and we have a toast, what will we celebrate? And I said, well, hopefully we're all still here and we're solving. That's what we hope to celebrate in this environment. But this really goes down to a lot, even what we've heard here at the conference today. We never focus a lot on what everybody else is doing. We don't really worry about the competition. We don't really look at a lot of national statistics. We don't look at technology a whole lot. We just try to simply focus on being the best we can be within our own box. And that means that, every pill is given on time. Every resident's fed a proper meal on time. They're clean. They're, dignified and in a safe environment. So we just call it the simplistic approach. And we do a lot of that. And we get a lot of, trust the process. We work on the process. We work on, one day at a time, not getting too, far. Don't focus on the scoreboard. Just focus on being the best. And it's a full-time job. And we really say until we can do that flawlessly, we can't really focus on anything else. And truth be told, it's very hard to do that flawlessly. But we really just try to stay in our box and focus on what we can do best at community.
That's so awesome. It's such a great way to look at it. And it is so difficult. Chris, what are like practical ways you keep your team focused on that? Because with all the distractions, all the noise, all the challenges that you deal with in all these communities that you operate every day with all these different leaders, what are some practical ways you keep your team motivated on what's the most important thing, the blocking and tackling, as you say, that we got to do every day?
I think for us, we try to be in those communities as much as possible. I try to, I think last year I had over 220 nights. I like to get in. We like to spend time there. We spend a lot of time. We had hurricanes here several weeks ago. I was at a community. It's just providing the support. That's all we can do. We changed so many things back in 2021, 2022 when the staffing crisis really kicked in. We have the best PTO, I think, that you can have. A really rich program. We looked at benefits. We have all of that in place, and it didn't really help when it was down to it. It's just about spending the time there, listening, knowing as many important names as you can know when you go in. Cook for them. So when we do go out for a week, and we may be doing a fast Friday on Friday, we're always there on Monday. We're doing a meal on Tuesday for the residents. We're feeding the employees on Wednesday. Thursday's kind of a catch your breath day, get ready for Friday. But we're there and trying to take stuff in, and it's really about the human side of it more so. I just don't think there's enough money out there you can buy your way. It's the relationship. People ask us all the time, what's the secret sauce? So there is no secret sauce. It's just the relationship.
Yeah.
It's just having those relationships.
You've been able to scale operations and somehow be able to scale to not lose touch with the relationships, what you're talking about. Is there a certain way that you've been able to do that? Because, I know there's a lot of startup companies out there that are trying to get to scale. And then it's like, where's the line where it's a fine line where you get maybe too big, where you can't still feel like the relationship recipe that you're talking about that you've got to constantly try to work on. What have you found that's helped you be able to scale and not lose that?
We have been so fortunate when we have done an acquisition per se. We've been so fortunate, and this is a really good opportunity because I didn't want to end here today without recognizing the people that work for us and our team. So believe it or not, 36 communities, 9 states, 2,500 apartments. There are 7 corporate employees.
Wow.
7. There's 7 of us, and we're spread all over, and they're just good at what they do, and it's really my job to support them and give them autonomy. They all know how to, where to focus. And we didn't have HR until about 2 years ago, and we had an excellent opportunity to hire from a previous company, and she came on with us. She has an HR background. And she had some senior housing experience, but then she also had a counterpart that had retail experience in McDonald's. And, so we get so focused sometimes on senior housing. Well, an hourly employee to a certain degree is an hourly employee, whether that's hamburgers or, senior living, or grandma, if you will. And just being able to, again, it's that relationship. We do those Zooms every 2 weeks. We're constantly in touch. It's a lot of communication. And you just have to realize, I think that some of the maybe people coming in, I'll often refer to this business stops for nothing. Doesn't stop for a hurricane. You have a family emergency, keeps on going. You get COVID, keeps on going. Family member keeps on going. It just keeps on going. You just have to keep that in perspective. 2022, we took on 7 buildings, 700 employees, close to 843 apartments in one fell swoop.
Wow.
So trial by fire, right? It's just that relationship piece of the pie. And I just look at myself as one of them, and we've had great relationships. We all get along.
Forecast ahead for you. You've been growing steadily through the years, and you've obviously picked up a lot of new business, new communities. What is your forecast for growth? What are you looking for? What are you excited about?
Well, we're happy where we're at. We're the largest shop operator for a REIT based out in California. It's a RIDEA structure, so it's not a lease back. We actually JV with some of them. That's been good for us. We've always looked at growth as needs to make sense for everybody. We just don't take stuff to add to a number, add to a community count. I don't know what growth is. We're 36 right now. Actually, we would like to contract a little with some underperformers and things like that, kind of, step back. I just don't need, we're good at what we got, and we've got room to grow. So, we've got certain buckets that, are about 90% occupied. So that equals 70 rooms somewhere. There's our growth. And that was taught to me a long time by a mentor I had back in Horizon Bay, Tilo Best, who's I think now retired, but he used to always say the growth's in the vacant room. He wasn't worried about running around and, well, we need more. He's like, look, we got 80 units. How much is that? There's the growth. So the growth for us is in the vacant units.
That's a brilliant way to look at it, Chris. I appreciate you saying that. And so I would imagine, knowing what kind of, if we do look at industry averages, almost every operator out there has numerous vacant.
Right.
So if there is an opportunity there, what would you say is your strategy in-house to, as you're looking at opportunity, which it sounds like your occupancy is amazing. So that's good, but you still have opportunities like we all do. So what are some ways that you guys, is it building refreshes? Is it retooling some marketing, or what are you doing?
Most of all of our stuff is acquisition. And if I say you look at the average, most of our stuff was probably built late 90s, 96, 97. It is tired. And so, I've known you for, 10 or 12 years. And then I'd seen your relationship with Lucas, and then we took over some communities out in Texas that he had done some work for. And then lo and behold, we had a freeze and a pipe bust. And I was like, well, I better introduce myself to Lucas because I got a big mess I need cleaned up in Tyler, Texas. And he answered the phone, and it sort of went from there. So we're trying to do some fresh ups. We can't do as much as we would like to do, but paint, carpet, lighting, and some furniture go a long way. So we're doing quite a bit of that. From an occupancy standpoint, where we can, sometimes where we are highly occupied, we just have to look at revenue. but be mindful of, there is a limit. People can only pay what they pay, and there is a limit. So you have to look at, maximizing. I think we're good expense managers. We always have been good expense managers. I think it has a lot to do with kind of what we looked and staying small, to look towards vendors. And we've also too kind of changed our approach. In some areas, there are local vendors that do much better for us than the big guys. So we'll go local in those particular scenarios. But where we can, mostly just, freshen up and continue to make the best we can with what we have.
Yeah.
As a state, we're working in our box. Here's our box. Let's figure out what we can do with what we got.
Absolutely. Well, Lucas, the philosophy is consistent, and it's been a successful recipe. I know a lot of our listeners their ears are perking up and appreciate the value that Chris is providing to the industry and the communities that you serve. So thanks for being a guest with us today.
Great. I appreciate you. And we'll figure out. Well, you can come to League City. We're cooking barbecue in October, and we'll let you know next time we're in Knoxville.
That's awesome.
Yes, I can't wait for that. That's going to be a fun event. And, I really enjoy these. I kind of consider this a bit of a mentor podcast. These are core principles that so many in the industry really resonates with. So, Chris, very much appreciate your time. And so to our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Chris and his team, scroll down on your podcast player and look at the show notes, those links there. You can also go to btgvoice.com, access this content, so much more. Hit us up on LinkedIn. We want to hear your views and comments on this topic. What are you seeing in your communities? And thanks for listening to another great episode of Bridge the Gap.
Thanks for listening to Bridge the Gap podcast with Josh and Lucas. Connect with the BTG Network team and use your voice to influence the industry by connecting with us at btgvoice.com.